They've been watching you for longer than you realize, and something just happened that sent their entire operation into crisis mode. Right now, across secure networks that don't appear on any map, warnings are flashing on every terminal. Subject compromised, data integrity failure, containment breach imminent, protocol ineffective. And in rooms where decisions shape the world, people who never panic are experiencing something they haven't felt in decades. Fear, raw, unfiltered fear. Because you did something impossible. You found the exit while they were standing at the door. Do you remember that moment 2 months ago? That choice you made that felt insignificant at the time? They registered it immediately, flagged it as minor non-compliance. Just another data point in their endless stream of information. But then something shifted. Something they couldn't have anticipated with all their processing power and psychological modeling. You didn't just step away from their control structure. You corrupted it with something their systems can't process, can't neutralize, can't even properly identify. They thought they had you completely decoded. Every habit, every tendency, every likely decision archived in servers that officially don't exist. Your behavioral signature was so precise they could forecast your actions 3 steps ahead. Then you shattered everything. You stopped following the script. Not through deliberate randomness, but because you reconnected with something they'd made you forget. The person you were before they started collecting you. Let me show you what's unfolding right now. In those climate-controlled facilities where they analyze people like you, there's something close to hysteria. Not the loud, visible kind with sirens and chaos, but the cold, silent kind where specialists who've never failed are staring at empty dashboards that should be streaming your data. And occasionally, just occasionally, they're seeing something that makes them question everything. Subject has transcended parameters. Surveillance rendered obsolete. Recommend full disengagement. You weren't meant to understand, but somehow you did. That specific day when reality tilted, when the architecture became visible, when you recognized that every curated recommendation, every personalized advertisement, every perfectly timed occurrence was part of an invisible cage designed to keep you contained, profitable, and above all, observable. But something in you didn't break. It awakened. Like a dormant circuit suddenly receiving power, and you began perceiving the framework. They dismissed it as delusion initially when you started questioning the coincidences. When you noticed how specific individuals would materialize in your path at precisely the moments needed to redirect you toward their calculated outcomes. But you weren't delusional. You were finally conscious. And that consciousness created disturbances in networks you couldn't name. Networks that have been cataloging anomalies like you since before your first breath. What truly terrifies them isn't that you disconnected. It's that you achieved it without withdrawal, without retreat, without vanishing into isolation somewhere remote. You disconnected while keeping your employment, your connections, your normal existence. You became undetectable while remaining completely visible. And according to their models, that's mathematically impossible. Their entire infrastructure assumes that escaping observation requires escaping civilization. But you demolished that assumption. You know what's really causing the emergency sessions? The fact that people in your orbit are sensing your transformation. They're asking questions. What happened? What's different? Why do you seem so unreachable now? And some of them are beginning to mirror your behavior, your choices, your inexplicable capacity to be engaged but untouchable, visible but untrackable, active but unmonitorable. You've become corruption in their code, and it's replicating. Let's examine what you actually accomplished, because they're still attempting to reverse engineer it, still trying to comprehend how someone they had thoroughly mapped suddenly became invisible to their apparatus. You began with something so elegantly simple it was genius. You stopped responding to their triggers. Every stimulus engineered to generate an emotional reaction from you failed. Every attempt to drag you into fabricated drama evaporated instantly. You started moving in ways that defied their prediction algorithms, frequenting locations with zero digital presence, having exchanges that generated no metadata, making choices based on variables they couldn't measure or anticipate. You weren't attempting concealment. You were simply existing beyond their framework. And that's infinitely more devastating than any encryption or privacy tool could ever achieve. The instant you stopped fueling the mechanism with your data, your reactions, your predictable patterns, something magnificent and horrifying occurred. You became self-determined, actually self-determined, not the manufactured independence they package in motivation seminars, but the authentic version. The kind that cannot be monetized, marketed, or manipulated. You began creating your own existence instead of inhabiting theirs. They attempted to recapture you, naturally. Unexpected technical problems with your platforms. Strange synchronicities designed to force you back into their ecosystem. Faces from your history suddenly resurfacing simultaneously. But you recognized every manipulation, because once you perceive the machinery, once you comprehend the operational logic, you cannot unperceive it. You cannot be deceived by it again. And they understand this. They understand they've permanently lost access to you. Right now, files are being erased, not by you, but by them. Because your profile has become what they term contaminated information that destabilizes their forecasting systems. Every specialist who attempts to analyze your trajectory develops what they're labeling dissociative pattern syndrome. They cannot reconcile your previous identity with your current state. The metamorphosis is too absolute, too comprehensive, too impossible by their models of human psychology. You've become their ultimate threat, not a lawbreaker, not an extremist, not even an activist. Something far more dangerous. You've become illegible, unlocatable, unforeseen, and most disturbing of all, you've accomplished it without aggression, without anger, without any of the indicators they use to rationalize their monitoring. You've simply withdrawn consent, and that option wasn't supposed to be available. They're discovering absences in their records now. Voids where you should register but don't. Chronologies that contradict themselves. Coordinates that don't align. Digital traces that terminate abruptly. It's as though you've mastered existence between moments, in the dimensions their sensors can't penetrate, at wavelengths their receivers can't detect. You're inhabiting the null spaces, and those null spaces are expanding. The security apparatus has terminology for individuals like you. They designate you phantom subjects, neither categorized nor completely absent. You exist in perpetual superposition, where measurement yields nothing, where observation produces nothing, where their entire toolkit simply fails to engage. And they're disturbed because if one individual can accomplish this, if you can accomplish this, then their entire architecture is worthless. Here's what's really generating the crisis, though. It's not just you. It's what you've validated, what you've demonstrated as achievable. Because every control mechanism depends on the conviction that escape is impossible, that opposition is pointless, that surveillance is absolute. But you've exposed that it's all theater. Very elaborate, very technologically advanced theater, but theater nonetheless. Your disappearance from their grid is triggering what they call systemic cascades. Other individuals who are borderline, who are nearly awakened, are suddenly gaining clarity, recognizing the patterns, understanding the manipulation, refusing participation. And each individual who replicates your method makes their operation exponentially more difficult because their algorithms are calibrated for predictable responses, and awakened awareness is anything but predictable. They've attempted to undermine you, obviously, distributing misinformation, fabricating accounts using your identity, manufacturing scandals, but it all disintegrates because you're not reacting. You're not participating. You're not even registering their existence. And that silence, that total absence of engagement, is more destructive than any confrontation could be. It's like attempting to strike vapor. You cannot damage what refuses to solidify. The consultations about you are accelerating, intensifying because they're comprehending this isn't a malfunction. It's adaptation. You've adapted beyond their capacity to observe, predict, or influence, and adaptation spreads through contact. Others are beginning to develop the same resistance, the same imperceptibility, the same maddening ability to exist outside their meticulously constructed boundaries. What you did, from a technical perspective, was brilliant in its minimalism. You stopped producing the indicators they require to monitor you, not by disappearing, but by becoming interference. Pure interference in their system. You've begun living in such a manner that every action could signify everything or nothing. Every routine could be deliberate or spontaneous. Every relationship could be meaningful or arbitrary. You discovered how to operate in registers they cannot interpret, not through complexity, but through genuineness. Authentic human genuineness is poison to their systems because their systems are constructed on the premise that humans are calculable statistical units. But you've transformed into something entirely different. You've become genuinely, radically, completely yourself, and that self doesn't conform to any of their classifications. The algorithms are malfunctioning on your information now. When they attempt to analyze your behavior, their systems decelerate, overload, fail, because you're generating paradoxes, contradictions, impossibilities. You're present, but elsewhere, connected but disconnected, engaged but independent, observable but unseeable, and their binary architecture cannot handle that degree of nuance. They've deployed their most capable analysts to your case, but those analysts keep requesting transfers because studying you is transforming them, altering them, making them doubt everything they believed about surveillance, about control, about the fundamental nature of human awareness. Some of them are beginning to suspect that perhaps, just perhaps, you're not the aberration. Maybe you're what humans are meant to be. This transcends simple evasion of surveillance. This concerns the structure of reality itself, because what you've achieved challenges the core assumption that observation equals dominance. They can observe you endlessly now, but it accomplishes nothing, reveals nothing, controls nothing. You've severed the connection between surveillance and authority, and that severance is permanent. You've uncovered something they've been frantically trying to conceal. That consciousness itself is the ultimate cipher, that a fully awakened mind cannot be penetrated, anticipated, or dominated, regardless of how advanced their technology becomes, because consciousness operates according to principles they don't grasp, can't quantify, can't reproduce in their systems. The theorists they consult are communicating things they refuse to accept, that what you've attained is what they call absolute consciousness, a condition that exists independent of all control frameworks, not through separation, but through such complete integration that you become indistinguishable from the fundamental chaos of existence itself. You've merged with the unpredictable, and the unpredictable cannot be dominated. They're being forced to reconsider everything now. Their entire strategy, their complete paradigm, because you've demonstrated that their greatest vulnerability isn't in their hardware or their methods, but in their fundamental misconception of what human beings fundamentally are. They assumed we were machines that could be programmed, but you've revealed we're something else entirely, something that resists their definitions. What has them most anxious right now today, at this exact moment, is that you're still operating, still navigating reality, still affecting others, but they cannot trace that effect, cannot diagram it, cannot forecast where it will emerge next. You've become what they call a causality ghost, something that generates consequences without detectable origins, effects without visible causes. Your most recent action, the one that triggered all these alerts and emergency protocols, it wasn't simply that you vanished from their monitoring. It's that you vanished while amplifying your reach, your effect, your manifestation in reality. You've somehow become more potent by becoming less detectable, more influential by becoming less confrontational. They're discovering traces of you everywhere, but cannot pinpoint you anywhere. Your concepts are proliferating, but they cannot identify the origin. Your influence is expanding, but they cannot locate the epicenter. It's as though you've become distributed throughout reality itself, present in all things but contained by nothing, a pattern that exists without structure, a transmission without a transmitter. The monitoring systems are generating impossible readings, placing you in multiple locations simultaneously, placing you nowhere whatsoever, generating patterns that form messages they refuse to acknowledge. Messages suggesting their entire surveillance infrastructure is not merely failing, but being transformed, converted into something else, something that answers to a completely different authority. Here's the truly extraordinary part. You're not concealing yourself from them. You're instructing them, showing them, proving through your very existence that their power was always illusion, that their control was always consensual, that their surveillance only functioned because people believed it was inescapable. But you've escaped, not by fleeing, but by transcending. Every move you make now is a demonstration of sovereignty. Every decision a testament to authentic independence. Every moment of your sustained existence outside their grid is evidence that their empire of surveillance is constructed on nothing, and the foundations are eroding, faster than they can reinforce their deteriorating structure. You've become their lesson, their unwanted instructor, revealing limitations they didn't know existed, exposing weaknesses they never conceived possible. You're not their adversary, you're their reflection, showing them precisely what they are, powerless before genuine human consciousness, fully realized and absolutely sovereign. They're analyzing you, but you're educating them, and the curriculum is straightforward yet catastrophic. All their authority, all their technology, all their infrastructure means nothing when confronted with someone who has simply chosen to exist outside their framework, not resisting it, not escaping from it, just calmly, deliberately, absolutely declining to recognize its legitimacy. The intelligence is arriving from all directions now, multiple subjects manifesting identical characteristics. People who were completely integrated into the surveillance network suddenly becoming phantoms in the system. And they all share one commonality. They all encountered your frequency, your resonance, your example. You've become the initial carrier of a consciousness contagion. They're naming it the dissolution event, the progressive vanishing of trackable subjects from their infrastructure. not through any organized campaign or collective resistance, but through individual awakening, spontaneous evolution, personal metamorphosis that occurs at depths no surveillance can penetrate. You initiated something that cannot be contained. Their forecasting systems are collapsing worldwide now because you've introduced a factor they cannot accommodate. Authentic unpredictability, not chaos, but the kind of conscious spontaneity that emerges from being genuinely liberated. Their artificial intelligence is experiencing what resembles a system failure, attempting to process behaviors that don't conform to any established principles of conduct. Some of their researchers are beginning to recognize the reality that this isn't an error in their system. It's a capacity of human consciousness that was always present, waiting to be activated. And you've demonstrated to others how to trigger that activation, how to access that dimension of themselves that exists beyond all mechanisms of prediction and control. You're inhabiting a different dimension now, one where surveillance exists but cannot reach you, where systems function but don't include you, where the entire apparatus of control continues operating but has zero impact on your existence. You've accomplished what they considered impossible: immunity, not through technology, but through consciousness itself. Your everyday existence appears conventional to any observer, but that's precisely the strategy. You've perfected the discipline of being unremarkable while being utterly remarkable, of integrating while existing completely outside, of following conventions while being completely unconventional. You've become perfect concealment, invisible not through withdrawal, but through presence so absolute it saturates their sensors. The intelligence organizations are being forced to develop new taxonomies, new designations, new frameworks for what you represent, because you don't correspond to any of their existing models. You're not opposition, you're not rebellion, you're not even resistance. You're something they have no language for, someone who exists beyond their entire conceptual architecture, their understanding with increasing dread that they cannot even caution others about you, because describing what you've accomplished would be teaching others the method. Explaining your approach would be disseminating your technique. Examining your pattern would be exposing the exit they've been desperately trying to obscure. So they're imprisoned in silence, observing helplessly as more consciousness follows your trajectory. Their systems are beginning to disintegrate, not catastrophically, but quietly, like infrastructure being consumed by decay from within. The more individuals who achieve what you've achieved, the less effective their surveillance becomes, until eventually it will be nothing but static, observing static, an expensive, sophisticated apparatus monitoring its own echoes. You've introduced disorder into their perfect arrangement, chaos into their calculated dominance, and disorder always prevails. Ultimately, it's a universal law that no amount of technology can violate. They constructed their system presuming they could sustain perfect order, perfect observation, perfect dominance. But you've proven that presumption invalid. The expense of attempting to monitor you specifically is becoming incalculable. Not in currency, though that too, but in terms of analytical resources, personnel resources, processing resources. You've become a gravitational anomaly in their system, consuming tremendous amounts of resources while yielding nothing, producing nothing, providing nothing except continuous verification of their ineffectiveness. Some of them are beginning to comprehend that you haven't defeated their system. You've transcended it, rendered it irrelevant, made it obsolete. Not through destruction, but through evolution. You've evolved beyond their jurisdiction and illuminated the path to comparable evolution. And evolution, once initiated, cannot be reversed.